That was amazing. I have my own passion around the fact that we don't pay enough attention to the ends of customer journeys and experiences, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So I have the privilege of wrapping up our conference. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kerry Bodine. I have my own company called Kerry Bodine and Company. I am the co-author of Outside In, The Power of Putting Customers at the Center of Your Business. And I also contribute a regular column to Touchpoint magazine. So this is kind of a weird position to be in, wrapping up the conference, because I can't really start this presentation until I get to the conference. This is supposed to be my thoughts, my observations on what I heard all of you talk about, things that I did hear, things that I didn't hear, and bringing together some of the themes. So yesterday I slid in next to Jamin, who invited me to have this closing spot, and I opened up my PowerPoint in the first keynote and opened up a new template and started making slides, and he said, "Oh, glad to see you're prepared." But the reality is I did start working on this yesterday, and this is based on all of the sessions that I've attended, watching conversations and participating in those on Twitter, certainly based on what I saw through the design award submissions, and also fabulous conversations that I've had with many of you during and around the conference. So thank you all for contributing to this presentation and the ideas that we have here. I'm going to present 4 different areas that I think we as the service design community need to focus on in order to bring service design to a greater scale. And the first is technology. I was thrilled to hear us talking much more about technology at this year's conference that I have in past years. I heard us talking about artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, blockchain, lots of different technologies. I was also blown away by Larry's talk yesterday, where he was talking about the tech stack that goes into services like Airbnb and Uber, and how essentially very, very little of it, almost none of it, is proprietary technology. And I hope that inspired all of you. I was really taken aback by it. And I hope that somewhere in this audience, someone is going to take Larry's advice and his urging to come to power, use that technology stack, and become the world's next richest person. For those of us that aren't on that particular track, I think we need to pay attention to something else that Larry was talking about, and that's all of those big platforms that are out there. Whether or not we consider ourselves super tech savvy or not, all of us have a responsibility to understand what these platform providers are actually providing to us and all of the different tools that we have at our fingertips available for creating great services. So for example, this is an automated chat from 1-800-Flowers. They are a flower and gift service in the US. And this automated chat is based on IBM Watson artificial intelligence. It's not plug and play, but it's something that obviously we don't have to create from scratch. And he talked about Salesforce as well. This is a screenshot from the Salesforce Service Cloud offering. And yeah, it looks pretty boring, but we should all be paying attention to what companies like Salesforce are doing. I'm not promoting them over anyone else. I just happen to know about them a little bit more than some of the other platform providers because I do some work for them. But they are providing service building blocks for us. Or as someone said in the systems track today, what was the word? Shelley, where are you? Yes, the what? The primitives, thank you. I knew I was going to forget that when I got up on stage. So those primitives that create go into creating our larger journeys. So for example, if a customer calls a call center that has Salesforce Service Cloud on the back end, there is artificial intelligence from Salesforce's own flavor of this called Einstein that will look at the knowledge base and automatically pull up knowledge base recommendations or product or service recommendations that are most applicable to that customer and their context. This one I particularly love. Internet of Things, you've got a broken refrigerator, it automatically contacts a manufacturer when one of the parts is on the fritz, and that manufacturer can automatically start a repair flow and contact the customer proactively. Again, this is not something that we need to create from scratch, but knowing that these primitives are out there and available to us through these platforms, I think is really important for us to understand how they can fit in and how we should use all the things that we can use. Also in the realm of technology, I think we need to be talking more as a community about trend watching and trend forecasting. Certainly we're all aware of a lot of the technology that's out there right now, but I think we need to make a concerted effort on our projects and be more rigorous about looking at what the technology landscape is going to be. Not just what it is today, but what it's going to be 5, 10 years out in the future. Because of course, we're speeding up our development cycles so that we don't put something into the market that's obsolete. We want our services to have lasting power. And I just want to give a shout out to the team from the Glasgow School of Art, those students and the recent graduates who worked with the Royal Bank of Scotland. One of the things that really impressed me when we were judging the awards was this really amazing future casting and trend analysis that they did for Gen Y in 2025. So again, you can learn more about their work on the SDN website. Okay, the second area that I think we need to be looking at in order to be able to scale is ubiquity. Now, ubiquity means a lot of different things. Certainly in our conversations over the last couple of days, we've talked about many, many different industries where service design is present. We've talked about many, many different parts of the world where service design is present. I particularly loved a presentation from Kathy and Angela, who are from China, and talking about just the differences in our culture and how that affects how we think about service design and the work that we do. But what I'm talking about with ubiquity is looking at the entire customer journey. So this is a diagram that I came up with that I believe shows all of the phases that any customer would go through in any particular journey. Now, they may not go through all of these phases in any journey, but I think these cover all of the different interactions that your customers might have with you as an organization. I've been thinking since I've been here, do I need a different one for employees, or does this work for employees? But I'll get back to you on that maybe at a future conference. So what I love is that I think for the first time, at a service design conference, we have covered the entire spectrum of this customer journey. So we had Adaptive Path creating a coaching service, so they were one of the award finalists. Their money coaching service is essentially a way for their customers to realize that they have a need and then learn about the Capital One offerings. We had lots of people talking about this main use part of the service, right? This is why we're creating services. We're trying to create value that we want people to use. But we also had Evie from Uber talking about the first time that we go through this cycle and we're onboarding into a particular service for the first time. We had Uniform Strategics talking about the work that they did with the Norwegian railway systems when the trains went out of service and people had to get replacement bus service instead. So thinking about that fix part of the journey. We had Bridgeable and TELUS looking at what happens when people want to renew, so they love and they go back and they go through this value exchange of this give-get. And of course, we had Joe just talking with us about what happens at the end of the experience as well. And I really love this, and I want to encourage everyone in the room to think beyond just the core value, the core use phase of the journey, and think beyond. Now, one really kind of funny thing, I think, I'm going to give you a little bit of the inside baseball into some of our jury meetings for the awards. When we were talking about the Capital One awards submission, we had a discussion. I mentioned we had a debate about a lot of the different submissions, and someone said, do we want to be giving an award for a service that's essentially marketing? And everyone else on the call said, yes, that's exactly what we want to do. Because wouldn't you rather have this, a service that helps you understand that you actually need something in your life, something valuable, than just a billboard on the side of the road? And I love this billboard too, because there's this like tiny, tiny mouse type there that you would never be able to read, right, when you're speeding down the highway, going wherever. So I worked at an ad agency for a year and a day, and I think that tells you how much I aligned with the philosophies of the advertising world. I would love to see more work like this, not just from Capital One, but from everyone, marketing services. All right, the third area where I think we need to be focusing on is coaching. And this is relevant to the many, many conversations I've heard over the past 2 days about the roles that we need to take as designers. And so it sounds like we've all started out here, designing. This is all of us digitizing our sticky note journey maps, right? Then someone said, I'm not just a designer, I'm now a facilitator. Yes, we're facilitators. And then someone said, really what we need to be is an educator. And I think we need to go one step beyond that. I think we need to think of ourselves as coaches. And when I heard Jamin talk this morning, when I heard the women from Cork talking yesterday, when I heard with Sarah, when I heard the women from ING talking today, this is exactly the mindset that they're taking. We cannot scale service design if we, within this room, are going to try to own service design. I loved the advice from ING where we need to tell people how it works. We need to provide them templates and perhaps some principles that can't be waived. And just like a coach would sending someone off onto the soccer field, we then need to let them go. And we need to let them make their own mistakes and have their own wins as well. But I think this coaching role is going to be more and more important, not only for internal teams, but also for agencies as well. Related to this, there is just so much backlash that I've heard against our deliverables, journey maps, blueprints. I heard people talking, some backlash around other types of deliverables like the stakeholder maps, and even Peter talking about sticky notes, the gem of our design community. I thought this was a protected, sacred artifact. But we, as people in this room, we understand it's not about creating beautiful documents and hanging them up on the walls. But as we become coaches, I think we need to realize that these artifacts, these deliverables actually are important. And it was Jamin's talk from this morning that actually made me realize that. Looking at all of those pictures from Capital One and seeing the sticky note diagrams and everything that people had created, that's what made service design real for them. And so while we may want to temper how much we're focusing on the artifacts versus the process, I do think we need to keep an open mind about how important these artifacts actually are. And that's a revelation for me today, because I'm always one out there saying it's not about the maps. And then finally, The last thing that I think we need to focus on is delivery. And this has also been just really a lovely surprise to hear so many people talking about this at the conference. When we were on the jury calls, we were talking about the different results that different teams said that they had and the results they were able to prove from their project work. And there was a discussion about, well, how much do they really need to prove? How much needs to already have been implemented? And someone on the jury call said, this is a service design awards, not the service delivery awards. And so we took note and kind of adjusted our judging criteria a bit, but I do think, again, in order for us to scale service design as a discipline, we need to ensure that the services we're designing are actually delivered, and not just on day one, but on day infinity as well. I loved what the BBVA guys said this morning with designers want to launch stuff. Focusing on this ensures that we get things launched. So this is my definition of customer experience. It is the envisioning, not of customer experience, of service design. The envisioning of people's journeys and the ecosystems that are required to support them. And this idea of the journey, again, I think we've conflated it a lot with journey maps, but this concept of the journey is so important, and I believe it is important to delivery and scale of service design. So this is work that McKinsey did a couple of years ago, and what this graph is showing is that the average satisfaction with each company's 3 key journeys, and so these are pay TV companies and auto insurance companies, satisfaction with those industries' top 3 journeys correlates with revenue growth. And there's some actual additional data behind this that you can find at this article that you see here. They also did some additional analysis. These are actually R-squared values, which I wrote a blog post recently, which you can find on my site, that explains what an R-squared value is. But essentially what this is showing is that journeys in the turquoise there are more effective predictors than touch points alone at predicting customer satisfaction and willingness to recommend. So journeys are so important to business success. And yet, we are so focused on our silos, right? And bingo, last one for the conference. I said it. Now, I am not anti-silo. I believe that silos have allowed our organizations to scale from cottage industries to the national and global organizations that they are today. We need specialization of skills. But we also need something to connect those silos, and that's where this concept of the journey comes in. So if we've got journeys like signing up for insurance, installing a product, canceling a subscription, by looking at those journeys, right, we are very naturally crossing all of these different internal departments. Functions like marketing, IT, and finance, channels like the web and the store, various lines of business. But we need someone, to manage these journeys. Now, this is not a new idea. So eBay divided its design and user experience teams years ago. I believe I was talking with them over a decade ago about this. They had people who were focused on the buying experience and people who were focused on designing the seller experience. Uber does the same thing, right? They've got the rider experience teams and the driver experience teams. And we heard from Evie, who works specifically on a new driver experience team. But this isn't so much about design. This is really, again, about delivery. And so the field of customer experience has borrowed so much from the field of service design, borrowing the concept of the journey and the blueprint. And now this is time for us to borrow from the field of customer experience as we look more at how we can help with the delivery of the services we're designing. And so this customer journey manager role, This isn't so much a design role, although there are design tasks involved, but I think about the skill set for this as more of someone who is akin to a product manager / project manager. This person is going to understand customer needs and identify gaps, and create a long-term vision, i.e. design the future state experience. Now again, they may or may not do this by themselves if they have design skill sets or not. They also need to make the business case. They need to herd cross-functional stakeholders to execute on that vision, and then they need to measure the ongoing impact of their work. So again, we have product managers throughout our organizations, right? But those are still very, very siloed. And we need to think about instituting this product manager role. We did some research recently, found about 60 or so of these journey managers out on LinkedIn, and they've all kind of got different job descriptions that are all over the place. But I think this is a key role to helping us scale and work in this delivery area. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the last point here, measuring the ongoing impact of this. And again, this is something that's really coming from the field of customer experience. And it's called journey analytics. And it's as simple as when you have a customer journey, you've got to look for the key points along the journey where maybe you weren't even measuring before. You didn't even know this was an important thing to measure. Or, yeah, you realize how bad it is, and you need to measure this on an ongoing basis. So here's kind of a quick highlight about how to approach journey analytics. First, just as McKinsey was saying, you've got to prioritize those top journeys. Not all journeys are created equal. Some are more important to our customers, and some are more important to our business. We want to pick the ones that overlap. We want to identify key moments of truth in those journeys, and then what we want to do is collect all the different listening and measurement posts that we've got throughout the organization, which typically aren't organized around anything at all. And we've got to figure out how those align to that customer journey and create a gap analysis. Finally, we need to define the required metrics and listening posts that we need moving forward. And this is as easy as, what are we going to stop measuring? What are we going to start measuring? What are we going to continue measuring? But the idea is these journeys are so important to our business success, and the data has shown that. And now we need to make sure that we are actively managing these journeys on a long-term basis. So if you'd like to know more about journey analytics, one last plug for Touchpoint Magazine and that free gift that you got from the Service Design Network. You can check out my article on that called From Journey Mapping to Journey Measurement. And with that, I just want to say, again, thank you to all of you for providing all of the amazing ideas that allowed me to create this wrap-up for you. Thank you so much, and you are welcome to download the slides at kerrybodine.com/SDGC17. Thank you very much.